Dear Journal. Tonight the ocean felt different. It wasn't restless or loud like usual. No waves, no bubbling currents, just stillness. The kind of stillness that makes you feel like time has fallen asleep. When I looked out my window, I saw something faintly glowing in the distance. At first, I thought it was just the moonlight reflecting off a jellyfish. But then I noticed it was moving differently. Not drifting like a creature, but gliding as if it had purpose. Curiosity tugged at me, as it always does. I slipped out of bed, tiptoed past Gary's cozy shell he was already dreaming. Little bubbles floating from his nose, and I stepped outside. The ocean air was cool, almost silky against my spongy skin. Bikini Bottom was completely quiet. No lights, no laughter, no sound from the Krusty Krab. Only the faint hum of the sea. I followed the glow. Each step I took stirred little puffs of sand that glittered in the moonlight. The light drifted toward jellyfish fields, so I followed the trail, feeling like I was walking through a dream. As I got closer, I saw a long wooden pencil floating just above the seabed. It spun slowly in the water, turning over itself, leaving a faint golden shimmer behind. It was perfectly ordinary and completely impossible at the same time. I reached out my hand. The moment I touched it, the water around me rippled, as though something invisible had awakened. The pencil hummed softly, not like a sound I could hear, but one I could feel. It was warm, gentle, as if it recognized me. Then, before I could blink, it started to move. It began to draw in the water-thin, glowing lines that trailed behind it like ribbons of light. At first, it drew shapes that didn't make sense, circles, swirls, floating lines that spun away into the distance. But slowly, the shapes began to come together, until I realized it was sketching jellyfish. They were glowing outlines at first, like gentle ghosts. Then, as the pencil hovered over each one, they filled with color pink, lavender, soft blue, and began to move. The jellyfish swam around me, leaving trails of light like fireworks underwater. The whole field lit up as if stars had fallen into it. I couldn't help but laugh quietly. It felt like watching dreams come alive. Every little movement the pencil made carried a bit of magic, not loud or bright, but delicate, like whispers between bubbles. I tried drawing something too. I took the pencil, held it carefully, and began to write my name in the sand. As soon as I finished the last letter, the name began to glow. The letters wobbled, shimmered, and then lifted off the ground. Each one turned into a bubble, rising gently upward. I watched them float away until they disappeared into the soft blue above. For a moment, I felt like the ocean was reading my name out loud, not with a voice, but with light. Then the pencil floated again, hovering in front of me. It started drawing something new. This time, it drew the Krusty Krab, not the real one, but a quiet, dreamy version of it. The lights in the windows flickered like candles. Inside, I could see tiny outlines of myself, cooking patties, humming softly. Even Squidward was there, sleeping at the register, and Mr. Krabs had his claws wrapped around a glowing coin that pulsed like a heartbeat. It was peaceful, the kind of Krusty Krab that only exists in dreams. The pencil kept moving, drawing little trails of bubbles that drifted through the doors and out the chimney. They floated up and burst into stars above the sea. I stood there, watching the scene fade into the distance, feeling a warmth in my chest, like remembering something that hadn't happened yet. I asked softly, "Who are you?" The pencil paused and turned toward me and began to write words in the sand. Everything you draw has a little bit of you inside. The letters glowed bright gold, then slowly faded. Before I could say anything, the pencil twirled in a slow spiral and began drifting away. I followed it through the fields. The sea around me was alive with light, glowing ribbons of jellyfish above, glimmering dust below. Even the rocks seemed to shimmer faintly, as though they were remembering old dreams. The pencil left a trail of golden dust that spread out into shapes, sea flowers, bubbles, loops of coral spiraling outward like galaxies. I didn't feel like I was swimming anymore. I was floating, the way a thought floats before you fall asleep. Everything was soft, weightless, calm. The pencil paused again, and this time it drew something small, a door, right in the middle of the water. It wasn't attached to anything, just standing there. The wood was bright yellow, and there was a tiny handle shaped like a spiral. I hesitated, then slowly reached for the handle. The door opened without a sound. Behind it wasn't darkness, it was light. A soft, endless glow that shimmered like the surface of a bubble. The pencil floated through the doorway, and I followed. On the other side was a wide, open space that didn't feel like the ocean anymore. It was brighter, almost like sunlight underwater, but softer, like being inside a dream made of light and sound. Shapes drifted all around me, outlines of things I half remembered. My pineapple house, Gary's food bowl, Squidward's clarinet, Patrick's rock. They weren't solid. They shimmered like memories. The pencil kept moving forward, sketching tiny details into each shape, the curve of Gary's shell, the bubbles from Squidward's clarinet, the smiling eyes of my jellyfish net. Each time it finished a drawing, the object came to life for just a few seconds, then dissolved into golden dust. It felt like watching my whole life dream itself back into the sea. I began to realize maybe this wasn't a pencil from the ocean at all. Maybe it came from somewhere else, a place where imagination lives before it drifts down into dreams. It didn't need to speak or explain itself. Its drawings were its language. Every line said something gentle, something true. After a while, I noticed the pencil had stopped. It hovered in front of me again, its glow dimmer now, like a candle burning low. Then it drew one last thing in the water, a spiral slowly winding inward. When it reached the center, a tiny bubble appeared. Inside the bubble, I saw myself sleeping peacefully in my bed at home, a small smile on my face. Gary curled beside me. Everything quiet, safe and still. The pencil floated closer to me and gently tapped my hand as if to say, "Thank you." Then slowly it began to fade. Its light shimmer dimmed and then melted into the water until there was nothing left but faint, golden dust. I stood there for a long time, surrounded by silence that wasn't empty. It was full of soft echoes, like the ocean was humming a lullaby to itself. When I looked down, I saw the sand beneath my feet glowing faintly, as though it had remembered the pencil's touch. The letters of my name were still there, faint and shimmering. And for the first time, I realized maybe dreams don't vanish when we wake up. Maybe they just sink gently to the ocean floor, getting written again. Dear Journal. I kept standing there in the glowing quiet for what felt like hours, maybe longer. There was no way to tell time anymore, no ticking clocks, no shifting shadows. Only the slow pulse of light from the ocean floor, breathing in and out like a living thing. It made me wonder if the sea dreams, too, when everyone's asleep. The golden dust that the pencil had left behind began to drift upward, curling like smoke. It shimmered faintly as it rose until it formed little orbs of light that floated gently through the water. They reminded me of fireflies, only slower, calmer, like they had nowhere to be. I reached out to touch one. It brushed against my fingertip and dissolved, leaving behind a soft warmth that spread through my hand. For a moment, I thought I heard something. Not words, exactly more like a faint hum, a lullaby made from the sound of bubbles. It was coming from where the pencil had vanished. The sound wasn't lonely. It was peaceful, like it was saying, "Keep going." So I did. The sand beneath me began to slope downward, leading into a deeper part of the ocean I'd never seen before. It wasn't dark. The light from the golden dust spread softly across everything, guiding me. The deeper I went, the more the sea changed. The coral no longer looked rough or sharp. It looked like it had been drawn by the pencil itself, smooth, glowing at the edges, gently swaying. I ran my hand along one of the coral branches. It felt warm, like paper that's just been written on. I started noticing shapes forming ahead, outlines appearing out of the shimmering blue. At first they were just vague, a curved line, a soft shadow. But slowly they took form. The pencil was back. It floated a few feet in front of me, its glow softer now, pulsing faintly with each movement of the current. Without me saying a word, it began to draw again. Lines appeared in the water, bending, swirling, curling into something familiar. It was drawing me. I watched as my shape appeared in glowing strokes, my square outline, my little tie, my big, curious eyes. The light version of me smiled, lifted a hand, and waved. It felt strange, like looking at a memory that had come to life. When the pencil finished, it hovered beside the glowing version of me, and then both began to move. The glowing SpongeBob started walking through the water, leaving a trail of bubbles behind. I followed quietly, as if I might wake him if I made a sound. We walked side by side through a world made of sketches, drawn coral, drawn seaweed, even drawn clouds above that shimmered like they were made of thought. Every few steps, the pencil would drift ahead and add a new detail, a flower, a shell, a jellyfish drifting upside down. Each thing it created lived for a few seconds, then softly faded back into light. I realized that maybe this place wasn't meant to last. It wasn't real, it was a dream sketch, a thought being born and forgotten at the same time. Still, it was beautiful. As we moved forward, the glowing version of me stopped near a rock shaped like a heart. He bent down and picked something up, a small, round bubble with something inside it. I leaned closer. Inside the bubble was a tiny drawing of my pineapple house, just a few glowing lines, but perfectly shaped. He looked at it for a moment, then turned to me and handed it over. The bubble floated between my hands, humming softly. I could see every little detail, the curtains, the bed, the little calendar on my wall. It made me feel safe, like I was holding home itself. But as I watched, the image began to fade, the lines dissolving back into gold. And just like that, the bubble was gone, leaving only a warmth behind. I looked up, and the pencil was moving again, faster now, sketching long, sweeping lines across the water. It drew a trail that stretched into the distance, curving upward toward the shimmering surface. It wanted me to follow. I took a deep breath, not because I needed air, but because it felt like the right thing to do. Then I started swimming upward. The water grew lighter, turning from deep blue to pale gold. The pencil's trail shone brighter and brighter until I had to squint. When I broke through the surface, I wasn't in the ocean anymore. I was floating in midair, or maybe not air at all, but something in between. Beneath me was the ocean, glowing faintly. Above me was a sky made of rippling light, moving like slow waves turned upside down. The pencil floated higher, then stopped. It began to draw across the sky, enormous, sweeping motions that left bright golden lines stretching across the horizon. I watched as shapes formed. Clouds, islands, bubbles that sparkled like suns. And then, at the center, a door. The same one as before, only now it was made of pure light. The pencil turned slowly toward me. It didn't speak, but I could feel its question like a thought brushing softly against my mind. Did I want to go through again? I hesitated. Part of me wanted to stay, to float in this glowing stillness forever. But another part of me was curious. Where did dreams go when they ended? Did they disappear, or did they keep drawing themselves somewhere else? So I nodded. The pencil spun once, quick as a spark, and the door opened. Light poured out, rippling across the sky and sea at once. I floated forward, feeling the warmth wash over me, not burning or blinding, just soft and endless. It felt like stepping into a memory I hadn't lived yet. Inside the light, I saw shapes again, dozens, maybe hundreds. Drawings floating around me like stars. Each one showed something familiar: Patrick laughing, Squidward painting, Sandy tinkering in her dome, Mr. Krabs counting a mountain of coins. No, but there were also things I didn't recognize: strange coral towers, cities made of bubbles, fish I'd never met. Maybe they were dreams I hadn't had yet. The pencil moved gently through them, tracing thin lines across each, like it was connecting them together. When it finished, all the drawings pulsed at once, bright, alive, and then slowly faded into the same golden dust. I realized something then. The pencil wasn't just showing me dreams, it was collecting them. Every dream ever had, every thought, every spark of imagination, they were all connected through this quiet sea of light. And maybe that's what dreams really are. Little sketches floating between worlds, waiting to be remembered. The pencil drifted toward me again. Its glow had softened to a calm, steady warmth. It traced a small circle around me, leaving a trail that pulsed like a heartbeat. Then it drew one last thing, a small notebook, floating gently in the water. It looked just like my journal. The pencil softly into its pages. The notebook glowed once bright, almost blinding, and then dimmed again. When I reached out and opened it, the pages were blank. But the warmth in the paper told me that the words were there, hidden in the light. I smiled quietly and closed the book. The sea around me began to fade again, the golden glow dimming into soft twilight blue. I could feel the world growing still like the end of a lullaby. And as the last shimmer disappeared, I heard the faint whisper of the pencil's voice. Keep drawing. Then everything went quiet. Dear Journal. When the quiet settled again, it didn't feel empty. It felt full, like the silence after a song, where every note still lingers in the air. I held the glowing notebook against my chest and drifted slowly through the soft blue. The light had dimmed around me, but not in a sad way. It was calm now, like a candle's last, steady flame before rest. As I floated, tiny bubbles rose from the sand below, catching bits of golden dust left behind by the pencil. Each bubble shimmered with faint shapes inside unfinished drawings, half dreams, maybe even thoughts that never got written down. I reached out to touch one, and it popped softly against my hand, leaving behind a ripple that shimmered like laughter. The ocean seemed to breathe with me, in and out, slow and gentle. After a while, I noticed something glimmering in the distance. At first, I thought it was just more dust, but as I got closer, I saw lines forming again. The light curved and crossed until it became a table. And on the table sat the pencil. It wasn't floating anymore. It rested quietly as if waiting. I swam closer and saw that beside it was a small stone cup filled with ink. The ink wasn't black. It shimmered with every color of the ocean, constantly changing. The pencil tipped slightly as if inviting me, so I sat down before it. The table felt warm beneath my hands, though it was made of coral and light. I took the pencil gently between my fingers. It felt lighter this time, not buzzing or humming, just calm, as if it trusted me. I dipped it into the ink, and as soon as the tip touched the surface, the colors rippled outward like waves. For a moment, I didn't know what to draw. There were so many things in my head: the Krusty Krab, my friends, jellyfish fields, Dear Dream Journal. Tonight feels different. The ocean is quieter than usual, not silent but hushed, as though it's waiting for something to begin. Even the currents move slower, like they don't want to disturb the calm that's settled across the sea. I can feel the weight of it, gentle but full, like the deep breath you take before a song starts. When I open my eyes, I'm not where I fell asleep. The world is dim and endless, a soft bluish-gray mist rolling over smooth sand that glimmers faintly under a pale glow. There's no ceiling, no horizon, only water that feels thicker here, as if every droplet carries a secret. And then I hear it, a single bubble. It rises from somewhere far below, drifting upward with a faint hum, a note so clear and pure it feels like it brushes right through me. Then another follows, and another, until the whole sea is filled with a slow, musical rhythm. Each bubble makes its own sound, a soft echo, a distant chime, a sigh. They float upward, gather near the top of the water, and shimmer before bursting in tiny flashes of light. It's beautiful, and a little mysterious. I start to drift toward the sound, moving as though the bubbles are calling to me, not with words, but with memories. The deeper I go, the more bubbles appear. They rise in spirals, in clusters, in delicate chains that stretch like strings of pearls. Some are small and fast, others are big and slow, turning lazily as they rise. And inside each one, there's something. At first, I think it's just reflections, light, bouncing in strange ways. But when I lean closer to one, I see a picture flicker across its surface. Patrick's rock house, glowing softly from the inside. He's sleeping soundly, snoring little bubbles that pop into the shape of hearts. The sight makes me smile. It feels warm, familiar. I move to another bubble. Inside, I see Squidward sitting by his window, playing his clarinet in the moonlight. The notes drift like jellyfish, slow, graceful, full of longing. Each one leaves a faint shimmer in the water that joins the hum of the other bubbles. More bubbles rise around me, each one holding a glimpse of something I know. Mr. Krabs polishing a single coin and falling asleep at his desk. Floating inside her tree dome, her helmet glowing faintly, eyes closed in peaceful thought. Even Gary appears in one bubble, fast asleep, tiny snores curling out like question marks. I realize what this place is. It's a room not made of walls or coral or doors, but of memories. Memories that breathe, rise, and echo softly in the water. the room of echoing bubbles. I reach out to touch one, and when my fingertip grazes it, the bubble hums a little louder. The sound ripples outward, making the other bubbles tremble and glow. Each one responds with its own note, higher, lower, softer, until the room becomes a quiet symphony of tones. It's not music the way I know it. It's something more, alive. Each sound feels tied to a feeling, and each feeling echoes in my chest like a soft vibration. I can sense which bubbles are happy, which are sad, which carry laughter or longing. All of them together weave into something so tender that I almost forget to breathe. Then from somewhere deep in the center of the room, I see a large bubble, much bigger than the rest, glowing with a calm, steady pulse. Its light is warm gold, like sunlight seen through deep water. It doesn't drift. It waits. I float closer. The water thickens slightly as I move, like I'm wading into a deeper layer of the dream. The smaller bubbles begin to follow me, gathering around as if escorting me toward the center. Their soft sounds merge into a slow, heartbeat-like rhythm. When I reach the large bubble, I stop and hover before it. It's beautiful, completely smooth, its surface reflecting the world around us in slow, wavy patterns. Inside it, I see faint shapes, moving flickers of light and color, like memories not yet formed. It feels alive. Curious, I place my hand against the bubble's surface. It's cool to the touch, yet it hums faintly beneath my palm, like something inside is listening. For a moment, nothing happens. Then the bubble shivers, not bursting, but opening. Its surface ripples outward like a door made of liquid glass. And from within, a faint voice echoes out. Not words, just sound. But somehow I understand. It's the same sound that filled the ocean earlier, now clear and close. It feels like it's asking a question. Are you ready to listen? The water around me brightens slightly. Every bubble in the room stops rising. All the sound, all the hum fades into a single, delicate stillness. I nod slowly, and the great bubble glows brighter. Inside it, the shapes of light begin to take form, long, slow spirals, just like the ones I drew with the pencil. They swirl and twist until they create something like a path, a glowing trail leading deeper into the dream. And then I hear it again, that same soft, wordless voice, rising like a breath through water. Follow the echoes. Dear Dream Journal, the light inside the great bubble feels softer now, not bright like the sun, but golden in the way candlelight flickers behind closed eyes. When I step through the shimmering surface, the sound changes. The ocean outside becomes distant, replaced by a deep, pulsing hum that seems to come from everywhere. It's like the whole room is breathing slow, patient, endless. The glowing path beneath me looks like a trail of floating dust. Each step I take sends out ripples that echo faintly, as though the sea itself remembers where I've been. The bubbles that had surrounded me earlier begin to follow, forming quiet spirals around the path. Tiny, glowing orbs rising and falling in rhythm. The deeper I move, the more the world changes. The walls of the great bubble stretch outward until they feel like the inside, giant pearl, smooth, luminous, curving forever. The air, or water, tastes faintly of salt and something like starlight, if starlight had a taste at all. Then I start to hear them again, the echoes. They're faint at first, distant, and hard to place. But as I continue walking, they grow clearer, softer than voices, but heavier than thoughts. Each one feels like a memory learning to speak. The first echo comes from behind me, though when I turn, there's no one there. It's Patrick's laugh, slow, sleepy, familiar. But it's not quite him. It sounds stretched, as though it's echoing through time. The laugh fades into a soft whisper of bubbles rising, pop, pop, pop. The sound leaves behind a warm vibration in the water, like a heartbeat that doesn't belong to me. Another echo follows Squidward's clarinet. Notes don't sound like they do in waking life. They're longer, dreamier, and they seem to weave in between the bubbles floating around me. The melody plays once, then again, each time changing slightly, as if it's trying to remember itself. And then faintly, a voice my own whispering words I don't remember speaking. Every bubble keeps an echo. Every echo holds a dream. The phrase drifts around me like a current, slow and certain. As it passes, several bubbles glow brighter. Inside them, I can see shapes, faint pictures forming like sketches underwater. In one, I see a young jellyfish field, untouched, the grass swaying gently with the tide. In another, I see the Krusty Krab, but empty, its lights flickering softly as if remembering laughter long gone. Each bubble holds not just an image, but a feeling, comfort, nostalgia, the kind of quiet that stays in your chest long after the sound fades. I reach out to touch each one. The instant my finger grazes the bubble, a sound hums through me low and warm. It isn't coming from outside, but inside, as if the bubble is speaking directly to my heart. And I remember. Not a memory from waking life, not a day, not a moment, but something simpler. The feeling of drifting in the tide as a sponge before I had friends, before I had a house, before everything. Just the ocean and me and the gentle push and pull of the water. It feels ancient, peaceful, eternal. The bubble slowly fades away, its light dissolving into tiny specks that drift off like dust. Where it was, the trail beneath me brightens, guiding me forward again. I follow the path deeper. The bubbles around me grow fewer but larger, each one pulsing faintly as I pass. The hum in the water deepens, becoming more like a soft chant, a language made of rhythm and warmth. It feels like the sea is remembering itself. And then I see another large bubble ahead, smaller than the first, but clear and bright like a pearl. Inside it, something glimmers. When I move closer, I see a reflection, but not of me as I am. It's me sitting at my desk in my pineapple house, writing in this dream journal. The bubble shows me dipping the pencil into the page, eyes soft, breathing slow. Every word I write inside the dream appears in the bubble, glowing briefly before fading. So this is where my words go. They don't disappear. They rise, they echo, they become part of this place. The bubbles remember. I smile softly and whisper, "Thank you." The bubble responds with a faint shimmer, like it understood. Then, without sound, it releases a single trail of smaller bubbles that spiral upward and vanish. The trail points me onward toward another pulse of golden light, deeper inside the great sphere. The hum grows softer, steadier, no longer many echoes, but one single sound, deep and kind. It's the sound of the ocean when you're half asleep, that soft rush that feels like breathing. The path beneath my feet begins to fade. Not disappear exactly. It just becomes light, diffused and gentle, as though it wants me to float instead of walk. So I let go. The water lifts me effortlessly. I drift forward, surrounded by the faint glimmers of all those memory bubbles. Each one whispers something as I pass, a laugh, a sigh, a tiny note like a farewell. And somewhere ahead, the golden light pulses again. Brighter now, closer. I feel it calling, not urgently, but patiently, like it has all the time in the world. I know that whatever lies beyond it is waiting to show me something I've forgotten, or maybe something I've always known. So I breathe in and let the current take me. The bubbles rise faster now, their soft tones blending into one long echo that carries me forward, toward the glowing heart of the room of echoing bubbles. Dear Dream Journal, the current carries me so gently that it almost feels like I'm not moving at all. Only the changing colors tell me that I'm gliding deeper into something luminous and ancient. The gold light ahead softens as I near it, turning into layers of pale amber, like sunrise seen through the warm water. The bubbles around me grow fewer, but each one now hums louder, as though the closer I come to the heart, the stronger their voices become. Their sounds no longer feel scattered. They weave together, harmonizing in slow, rolling tones that move through the water like a deep sigh. The current slows. The last few bubbles drift past me, glowing faintly. And then I see it. The heart of the room. It isn't a single object or even a space. It's more like a pulse, suspended in mid-water. A sphere of soft, transparent light, breathing in quiet rhythm. Each time bubbles appear. Each time it contracts, they vanish. The air around it ripples, filled with low, soothing vibrations that I can feel in my chest and fingertips. I drift closer until I can see faint shadows moving inside it. They aren't shapes I recognize, more like waves of light folding in on themselves. But then one of them begins to take form. It stretches, blurs, and then slowly shapes itself into something familiar. A face. Mine. Not exactly me, more like a reflection made of water and light. The dream me looks calm, eyes closed, surrounded by hundreds of tiny, glowing bubbles orbiting like stars. When I reach out, the reflection opens its eyes. They glow faintly, not bright but steady. And when it speaks, its voice sounds like 1,000 gentle ripples blending into one. You are hearing the sea, remember, it says. The sound vibrates through me rather than entering my ears. It feels soft, old, and infinite, the way coral must feel about the tide. The sea remembers every sound ever made within it. The reflection continues. Every laugh, every sigh, every word spoken and forgotten. Even the smallest bubble keeps an echo, a whisper of what was. I float closer, mesmerized. Behind the reflection, the sphere pulses brighter, filling the water with faint golden rings that drift outward like slow glowing ripples. I ask quietly, then what are the bubbles showing me? The reflection smiles, or maybe it's just the movement of light and answers. They are not showing you. They are remembering you. For a moment, everything feels still. The words sink into me like sand settling on the ocean floor, remembering me. Before I can speak again, the reflection forward, its voice growing softer. Dreams do not come from nowhere, SpongeBob. They come from every sound behind every word, every song you hummed, every echoed through the sea. When you sleep, the ocean gathers them and plays them back. That is what you are hearing now. The hum of the water deepens. The walls of the room begin to shimmer. Dear Dream Journal, tonight I dreamed I was walking toward the Krusty Krab, but it wasn't quite the same. The sign above the door glowed faintly, as if made from the light of sleeping jellyfish. The sand beneath my feet wasn't sand anymore. It shimmered like tiny scales, each one pulsing softly with rhythm, like the ocean's heartbeat beneath the world. The streets were empty. No bubbles drifted by, no laughter, no smell of fresh Krabby Patties in the water. Just the faint hum of the sea, slow and deep, echoing between the coral buildings of Bikini Bottom. When I reached the front doors of the Krusty Krab, they opened on their own. No creak, no sound, just a silent invitation. I stepped inside. The interior was dim, bathed in an eerie, bluish glow that rippled like moonlight seen through waves. Tables floated slightly above the floor, anchored by long strands of seaweed instead of wooden legs. The grill shimmered as if asleep, warm but not burning, waiting for something that hadn't yet begun. Mr. Krabs wasn't there. Neither was Squidward. But I could feel their presence, faint impressions in the water, like the memory of their movements. I floated toward the register boat. The little bell that hangs on the counter trembled slightly in the current, as though it was breathing. When I touched it, instead of ringing, it let out a low, resonant note, a hum that spread through the restaurant like ripples on glass. The walls began to shift. The wooden planks turned translucent, revealing the sea beyond them, not the ordinary sea, but something darker, quieter, stretching downward instead of outward. The Krusty Krab was floating above a vast trench, an endless chasm glowing faintly with golden light far below. The tables started to move slowly in circles, drifting like planets caught in slow orbit. And the grill began to shine. Lines of light traced across its surface, forming strange symbols that pulsed gently with each sound of the ocean. Then I heard a voice, faint but familiar. "Orders up." It was my voice. But it didn't come from me. It came from beneath the floor. I leaned over the counter and looked down. The planks beneath me had turned into glass, and I could see something moving far below. It looked like another Krusty Krab, identical in shape, but made entirely of golden coral. Tiny schools of glowing fish swam through its open windows, leaving trails of light that looked like scribbles of a dream still being written. And there, standing behind the coral grill, was me. Or at least, a dream version of me. He was flipping Krabby Patties made of light. Each patty shimmered with shifting colors, blue, violet, gold, and when he placed one on a bun, it dissolved into bubbles that floated upward through the ceiling, right into the room where I stood. They rose past me, glowing softly, before bursting into tiny sparks that smelled faintly of salt and starlight. For a moment I was mesmerized, watching each glowing bubble rise, pop, and disappear, leaving only warmth behind. Then beneath the dream Krusty Krab, I noticed movement. Something deeper, a third layer below. It wasn't another restaurant. This time it was something older, rougher, like the skeleton of a building long forgotten. Ancient coral columns held up massive stones carved with spiral symbols. The golden light flickered around them, revealing shadows that moved just out of sight. I pressed my hand to the glass floor. The hum from the bell still lingered in the water, and I felt it vibrate faintly beneath my fingertips, like the world below was humming back. My reflection in the glass blinked. Only I hadn't blinked. It smiled. Not in a scary way, more like someone who already knows the answer to a question I haven't asked yet. "Do you hear it?" it whispered, though its lips didn't move. "The song beneath the sea?" I nodded slowly, and the floor beneath me dissolved into a slow, spiraling current. I drifted downward gently, weightlessly through layers of light and shadow. The upper Krusty Krab faded above me, its sign glowing faintly one last time before vanishing into the blue. The coral Krusty Krab rose to meet me, warm and golden, humming softly like a seashell pressed to an ear. When I landed, my feet touched sand that wasn't quite sand. It felt alive, like soft memory under my toes. The coral walls pulsed faintly, breathing. Every sound echoed, as though the sea itself was speaking through the building. On the counter lay a crabby patty, glowing faintly gold. It wasn't real, I could tell. It was made of memory, like the taste of something you've long forgotten, but can almost recall. I reached out and picked it up. It didn't feel warm or cold, just light. When I squeezed it gently, it dissolved into tiny golden flakes that drifted upward, leaving a faint shimmer on my hands. And beneath the counter, a voice whispered again. "Every dream has a hunger, lad. You just have to feed it gently." That voice, unmistakably Mr. Krab's, echoed softly, almost tenderly. But he wasn't anywhere in sight. I turned, searching. The coral door at the back of the kitchen slowly opened, revealing a long hallway of golden arches stretching into darkness. A faint rhythm pulsed within like a heartbeat, like the ocean's pulse from deep below. I took a deep breath and began to walk toward it. Each step echoed softly in the still water, as though the sea was counting along. And then I heard laughter. Quiet, distant my own, drifting up from somewhere deeper still. The hallway stretches endlessly before me, long, glowing and silent. Each arch is made of coral, smooth and spiraled, like shells grown from memory instead of stone. The golden light ripples along the walls, not from any single source, but from the water itself, as if the sea is glowing from the inside out. As I move deeper, the hum changes pitch. It isn't quite music, but not noise either. It's like the soft thrum you hear when holding a conch shell to your ear, only this time the sound isn't distant. It's breathing, alive. The floor beneath my feet becomes glassy, reflecting the corridor above so perfectly that it feels like I'm walking through the center of two mirrored worlds. And in that reflection, I notice something strange. Sometimes my reflection lags behind. Sometimes it walks faster. The laughter I heard earlier, my own laughter, grows clearer now. It echoes softly through the arches, bright and innocent. But it isn't coming from ahead of me. It's coming from behind. I turn around slowly. The golden light bends. A few meters away, standing in the middle of the corridor, is me, or rather, a younger version of me. He's holding a spatula like a microphone, laughing and pretending to announce orders the way I used to when I first started working at the Krusty Krab. He doesn't see me at first. He's lost in his own world, flipping invisible patties, humming the jingle of the restaurant. Every movement light and effortless. "Order up," he shouts proudly, tossing an invisible patty into the air. When it lands, it bursts into a small cloud of golden bubbles that drift upward and fade. He stares at them, smiling, the way I always did when things felt simple, when every sizzle from the grill meant happiness. I watch quietly. The hum of the corridor softens around us like the sea holding its breath. Then slowly he looks at me and smiles. "You still remember the smell of the grill, don't you?" he asks. His voice is mine, but lighter, full of that early SpongeBob energy, the kind that never tires. I nod. The words don't come easily, but he seems to understand anyway. He walks closer, leaving faint trails of light in the water with every step. When he's just an arm's length away, he holds out his spatula. It's glowing softly, not metallic, but made of pure light, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. "Here," he says, "you'll need this down there." "Down where?" I ask. But before he can answer, the floor beneath us ripples. The reflection of the hallway melts away, revealing dark water below, deep, endless, alive. A faint current rises from it, swirling lazily around my legs. The young version of me steps backward, still smiling, as if this is how it's meant to go. "Keep flipping," he whispers, "even in the dark." And then he dissolves into light, scattering into tiny bubbles that rise toward the glowing arches above. The spatula remains in my hand, warm and weightless. The current beneath me grows stronger. Not dangerous, just persistent, like an invitation. The golden hallway begins to blur, its arches bending into spirals that twist downward into the dark water. Without thinking, I let myself float. The current carries me downward through the spiral, through layers of dimming gold that fade into deep blue. The hum becomes slower, deeper, no longer a song, but the steady pulse of the ocean's heart. I drift through a layer of mist, and when it clears, I find myself standing once again on solid ground. But I'm not inside the Krusty Krab anymore. I'm beneath it. The ceiling above glows faintly through the floorboards, and long strands of kelp hang down like curtains. The light that filters through them moves like soft shadows on the sand. And everywhere, I hear the faint sizzling of patties. Not loud, just distant, constant, like a memory playing on repeat. The smell is there too, faintly sweet, mixed with salt and warmth. It feels comforting, familiar. At the far end of the chamber, I see a counter made of coral and shell. Behind it stands Squidward, or at least a dream version of him. He's not annoyed this time. He looks calm, eyes half-lidded like he's half asleep while still working. Each time he exhales, bubbles rise, floating upward and vanishing through the ceiling. "Squidward?" I ask softly. He looks up slowly, and for the first time ever, he smiles at me. "Oh," he says, his voice carrying a strange echo. "You've made it down here. Where is this?" He shrugs. "The grease between dreams," he says lazily. "The place where every patty you ever imagined is still sizzling." I blink. "The place where every patty—" He nods, pointing his clarinet toward the far wall. And there, glowing faintly in the distance, I see them. Rows and rows of crabby patties floating mid-water, turning slowly in place, their golden glow reflecting like constellations. Each one hums softly. Each one has a slightly different shape. I move closer and realize every single patty looks like a memory. One shows the day I first met Patrick. Another shows me burning a batch of buns on my first shift. Another shows Squidward pretending not to smile at my jokes. They're all their moments of joy and silliness, trapped inside the shimmer of dream food. I reach out to touch one, and Squidward raises a hand. "Careful," he says gently. "You can't eat memories, SpongeBob. You can only taste them." The patty hums beneath my hand. The warmth seeps into my fingers, soft, pulsing, like holding a living thing. "What happens if I take a bite?" I whisper. Squidward smirks faintly. "You'll wake up?" I stare at the floating patties, each one turning slowly, shimmering like stars caught in water. They hum gently, as if they're breathing in rhythm with the sea itself. I can't stop watching them. I open my eyes to the sound of waves. Not the usual hum of the sea outside my pineapple window, but something softer, slower. Each wave rolls in like a sigh, then drifts away before it can break. The water glows pale pink and lavender, lit from somewhere far below. And when I lift my head, I realize I'm lying on a beach made entirely of tiny, glowing shells. They clink faintly as I sit up, each one letting out a tiny hum, as if the sand itself is singing. The horizon stretches endlessly, dotted with faint, sleepy stars that drift just beneath the surface of the water. It feels like I've stepped into a dream that belongs to someone else, someone calm, slow, and wonderfully content. A breeze passes, carrying with it the scent of kelp ice cream and coral blooms. It's peaceful, too peaceful. I stand and brush off the glowing sand. The shells stick for a moment, then tumble away with a soft chime. Farther down the shore, I see something pink and familiar, a figure snoring softly under a palm tree. A huge conch shell leans beside him, half buried in the sand. And beside that, a rock howl slightly crooked, covered in moss and bits of glittering sea glass. Patrick. He's lying on his back, his mouth wide open, bubbles drifting lazily from his nose with every exhale. Each bubble that rises catches the moonlight, glowing faintly before popping with a musical plink. His arms are spread wide as if he's hugging the entire beach. I take a slow step toward him, the glowing shells crunching softly underfoot. It doesn't feel like walking through someone's dream, more like walking through their heartbeat. The air is thick with the feeling of rest, as if the whole world has decided to take a nap at once. "Patrick?" I whisper. He stirs, mumbles something about extra sprinkles, then turns onto his side. A small crab scuttles past his starfish-shaped head, climbs onto his belly, and promptly falls asleep too. I can't help but smile. Even in dreams, Patrick manages to make everything look easy, like the universe itself relaxes when he's around. I sit beside him and look out at the ocean. The waves move slower than usual, curling and uncurling like sleepy thoughts. Every time one reaches the shore, a few glowing jellyfish drift up with it, hover for a moment, then drift away again. It's quiet, but not empty. There's something gentle beneath the silence, a hum, a pulse, a rhythm. It sounds almost like Patrick's snoring, syncing with the ocean's breath. After a while, the huge conch shell beside us begins to shake. At first, I think it's the tide, but then it lets out a long, drowsy woo, like a sigh from another world. The sound ripples through the water. Stars twinkle as if they're laughing quietly. A bubble drifts down and lands on Patrick's face, popping with a shimmer of starlight. He finally sits up, stretching his arms so wide they almost brush the palm leaves. His voice is thick with sleep when he says, "Oh, hey, SpongeBob, you're in my dream again." I blink. "Your dream? I thought I was dreaming." Patrick yawns. "Nah, I'm pretty sure this one's mine. I made it up after my nap. It's called Patrick's Sleepy Island." He gestures proudly around to the glowing shells, the gentle waves, the pink clouds shaped like jellyfish. Even the palm trees sway in slow motion, their leaves shimmering faintly. "It's beautiful," I whisper. Patrick nods lazily. "Thanks. I built it so I'd never have to get up again." He leans back against his rock house and pats the sand beside him. "Want to stay a while?" I sit next to him. The sand is warm, not hot, just perfectly cozy, like it remembers the feeling of sunshine. Every grain hums faintly when touched, like a lullaby hidden in the ground. Patrick hums along with it, off-key but happy. It takes me a moment to realize it's the same tune he hums when he eats ice cream on slow afternoons, the "Nothing to Do Today" song. "Patrick," I ask softly, "what do you do here all day?" He blinks slowly. I nap. I think about napping. Then sometimes I dream that I'm napping while I nap." He pauses as if to process that. "It's like triple relaxation." I laugh quietly. "That sounds nice." Patrick leans back again, watching a drifting jellyfish float by. "It is nice," he says. "There's no time here. No chores, no alarms, no Patrick. Where's my spatula?" He grins sleepily. "Just quiet, and naps, and snacks." As if on cue, a wave rolls in, carrying a small driftwood tray on it, 2 kelp shakes, and a single glowing donut that sparkles like moonlight. Patrick picks it up without surprise. "They show up whenever I think about them," he says with a shrug. "Dream rules." He takes a bite, and tiny sparkles scatter into the air, landing gently on the sand like lazy fireflies. He passes the donut to me. The taste is sweet but light like sugar clouds and laughter echoing in water. The stars above us pulse in time with Patrick's slow chewing. The whole sky feels alive, glowing softly with every contented sound he makes. I look out at the horizon again, feeling the waves match my breathing. For the first time in a long while, I realize there's no rush. Nowhere to go. Nothing to fix. Just this moment still, glowing, safe. Patrick glances at me, eyes half closed. "Hey, SpongeBob?" "Yeah, Pat?" "You ever think maybe the ocean dreams too?" I blink. "What do you mean?" He rolls onto his side, propping his head on one arm. "Well, when we go to sleep, we dream about the sea, so maybe when the sea falls asleep..." He trails off, yawning. "It dreams about us." I stare at him, lost in the thought. The ocean does feel alive here, breathing, shimmering, whispering in slow rhythms. And for a moment I can almost believe all of us, every creature, every bubble, are part of the same long, gentle dream. Patrick closes his eyes again, smiling faintly. His last words drift out like bubbles, barely louder than the waves. "If it is dreaming, I hope it never wakes up." The sky deepens to violet. The stars settle. The glowing sand hums a soft lullaby that fills the quiet. And I lie back beside him, letting Patrick's sleepy island carry us both deeper into its calm, endless dream. Time moves differently on Patrick's sleepy island at A. It doesn't tick or drift. It breathes. The waves inhale and exhale. The clouds change shapes only when no one's looking. And even the stars blink so slowly it feels like they're thinking before shining. I lie back beside Patrick, watching the pink-tinted sky melt into deep coral hues. The breeze carries the faint sound of something laughter, maybe, or the gentle rhythm of snoring jellyfish drifting by on invisible currents. When I close my eyes, the sand beneath me hums faintly. The hum seems to rise from deep inside the island, vibrating softly through my chest. It feels like a heartbeat, not mine, not Patrick's, but the island's own. Patrick rolls over, resting his chin on his hands. "Want to see something cool?" he asks, voice slow and lazy, like someone half asleep telling a secret. "Sure, Patrick," I whisper. He cups his hands together and blows into them. Tiny, glowing bubbles drift out, floating into the air like little lanterns. They rise slowly, 1, 2, a dozen, and as they reach the palm trees, they burst into small, sleepy shapes. Each bubble turns into a miniature starfish, yawned into being. The tiny starfish stretch, blink, and begin to climb the tree trunks, arranging themselves like ornaments. When the last one settles near the top, the whole island seems to shimmer slightly brighter, as if Patrick's imagination has become part of its sky. "Whoa," I murmur. "Patrick, that's amazing." He grins. "I call them dreamfish. They keep me company when I'm too tired to think." He leans closer, lowering his voice. "They don't talk much, but they snore really well." Almost on cue, a faint chorus of tiny snores rises from the palm trees. Somewhere a crab shell rattles softly, not from movement, but from the rhythm of the island's sleepy breathing. Patrick closes his eyes again, looking entirely content. "This place changes when I nap," he mumbles. "If I'm happy, it makes snacks. If I'm sad, it rains sprinkles. If I'm bored, it grows more sand." I laugh softly. "That's, actually kind of perfect for you, Patrick." He shrugs dreamily. "Yeah, but it gets tricky when I dream about thinking too hard. One time, the whole island turned into a pancake." He pauses. "I had to eat my way back to normal." The memory makes him smile, then drift off for a moment, snoring gently. As he sleeps, the island begins to change again, just slightly. The tide creeps closer, not as water, but as tiny, shimmering bubbles. Each bubble pops with a soft plink, releasing gentle images that float briefly in the air. Patrick chasing an ice cream truck. Patrick building a sandcastle that looks suspiciously like a donut. Patrick holding a jellyfish with both hands and smiling like it's the best day ever. The bubbles fade, and new ones replace them, slower now, softer, as though the island is exhaling his dreams into the night. I sit up, watching the gentle glow of each memory drift away. The light from them paints the ocean's surface in ripples of gold and pink. Even the sky seems to lean closer, curious about what Patrick dreams of next. Then suddenly something large and soft breaks the surface of the water offshore. At first I think it's a whale, but no, it's rounder, smoother, and oddly familiar. A giant sea pillow rises from the water, covered in coral fluff. It blinks once slow, calm, and drifts closer to shore. Its face is kind, almost blank, except for two peaceful eyes that shimmer like seashells under moonlight. Patrick stirs. "Oh, hey, that's Puffy." "Puffy?" I ask. "Yeah," Patrick yawns. "He's the island's guardian. But he's too tired to guard anything, so he mostly just floats around, making sure the waves don't forget to be cozy." Puffy lets out a deep, rumbling sound halfway between a purr and a sigh. The water around him turns from pale blue to rose gold. As the current brushes against the shore, I realize the waves now sound exactly like a heartbeat. Patrick waves lazily at Puffy. "Hey, buddy, want a nap with us?" Puffy blinks once, then gently rests his huge, pillow-soft body against the sand. The island adjusts to his weight with a low, soothing hum, as if happy to have another dreamer nearby. The sky begins to fill with drifting jellyfish, hundreds of them, moving in slow, synchronized loops. Their tendrils trail light through the air like ribbons of silver. And every time one of them passes overhead, it leaves behind faint traces of melody, a soft ringing like the chime of distant shells underwater. Patrick gazes up, smiling faintly. I always forget if they're real or just the part of my dream that likes to float. "They're real enough," I whisper. One of the jellyfish lowers itself toward us, hovering close enough to touch. Its bell pulses faintly with light, not white, but warm and peach-colored, like the last glow of a sunset. Patrick reaches out, and the jellyfish lands gently in his palm. It makes a soft cooing sound, then curls up, falling asleep there. Patrick holds it like a tiny pillow. "See," he says softly. "Everyone naps here. Even dreams need rest." I feel a slow warmth move through me, the kind that doesn't come from light, but from peace. The island seems to hum along with Patrick's breathing. The palm leaves sway, whispering to each other. The ocean hushes its usual chatter and turns into one slow, endless lullaby. For a long while we sit there in silence, Patrick holding a sleeping jellyfish, Puffy snoring in the shallows, and me listening to the sound of everything being perfectly impossible. It feels like time has curled up beside us and gone to sleep too. Somewhere in the distance, the horizon begins to shimmer faintly, not with dawn, but with something softer, dreamier. A low sound rolls through the water like a whale song, but slower, deeper. It echoes through the sand, vibrating beneath us like the island's heartbeat calling out across the sea. Patrick opens one lazy eye. "That's the lullaby current," he mumbles. "It passes by every night to make sure everyone's having good dreams." I nod, eyes half closed. The sound seems to fill the air, warm and endless, wrapping around us like a blanket made of sound. Patrick yawns, stretching his arms. "Hey, SpongeBob." "Yeah, Pat?" "I think my dream wants you to stay a little longer." I smile. "I think I'd like that." The lullaby current passes again, and the light of it glows brighter, bathing the entire island in soft, golden shimmer. Every shell, every leaf, every sleeping creature glows for a heartbeat, then settles back into rest. Patrick sighs contentedly. "Best dream ever," he murmurs. And as the hum of the island deepens, everything, even the stars, seems to agree. The night thickens, but not with darkness. It thickens with calm. The air feels slower here, heavier, not in a way that presses down, but in a way that invites stillness. Even the stars seem to breathe more softly. Patrick lies half buried in the sand, his arms tucked beneath his head. Each breath he takes sends a small ripple through the glowing shells around him, and those ripples drift outward, joining with the rhythm of the tide. I turn my gaze toward the ocean. Something is changing. The water near the shore begins to clear, then flatten, until it's as smooth as glass. The jellyfish hovering above it pulse slower, their light fading into faint silvery shadows. For a moment, everything holds still, the breeze, the sand, even Puffy's steady purring. Then the water begins to shimmer faint first, like moonlight trapped beneath its surface. And in that reflection, shapes begin to form. At first, they're abstract lines, glows, ripples. Then they sharpen, shifting gently until I recognize them. Patrick's memories. There he is, a younger Patrick, sitting on a rock beside the Krusty Krab, licking an ice cream cone that's melting faster than he can eat it. He laughs, bright and carefree, as SpongeBob appears beside him, holding two cones upside down, insisting they taste better that way. The memory ripples, blending into another Patrick and me chasing a jellyfish through a field of glowing seaweed. We trip, fall, and laugh until our sides hurt. The images don't fade immediately. They linger in the water like gentle echoes, then drift outward until the surface clears again. Patrick stirs beside me, mumbling through his dream. "Careful, SpongeBob. That's my last cone." I smile softly. "Don't worry, Pat. It's safe." The water shifts again. This time, the reflection shows Patrick sitting under his rock, surrounded by tiny sea creatures, Snails, minnows, hermit crabs all curled up beside him as he hums quietly to himself. He isn't doing anything, just being. And somehow, it's beautiful. The reflection shimmers, then fades once more. I realize that the lagoon isn't showing random moments. It's showing peaceful ones, the quiet joys that Patrick holds without even realizing it. Every bubble that rises from the lagoon pops with a soft note, as if the memories themselves are singing. The notes are delicate, barely there, more like feelings. And sounds. And together, they weave a melody so gentle that I almost forget where I am. Patrick's eyelids flutter. He opens one eye, staring dreamily at the glowing lagoon. "Oh, ring pool," he mumbles. I forgot about that." "The remembering pool," I repeat softly. "Yeah," he says, yawning. "It shows you the best parts of yourself, but only when you're too sleepy to notice." He rolls over, half smiling, his words. "Sometimes it shows my favorite snacks, too." I chuckle quietly. Of course it does. He grins faintly, then drifts back to sleep, the faint rise and fall of his chest matching the rhythm of the tide. I look back toward the lagoon. This time, the reflection isn't of Patrick or me. It's something else, something larger, the island itself. But not the one we're sitting on. This reflection shows an older version, smaller, lonelier, a little patch of rock floating in endless blue. Patrick sits on it alone, tracing shapes in the sand with a stick. He looks peaceful, but there's a quiet emptiness around him, the kind that even dreams can't hide. Then from the distance, a small, bright figure appears me. SpongeBob, running toward him, waving, smiling, carrying 2 seashell cones. As the two of us meet, the water brightens again. The island blooms, stretching wider, greener, glowing softly from within, and the reflection fades into gold. A warm breeze passes over the shore. The shells at our feet hum louder for a moment, almost like they're sighing in contentment. Patrick murmurs in his sleep, "I like it better when you're here." The words drift into the air, weightless like bubbles that never quite pop. They echo faintly across the island, bouncing off the palm trees and the soft ripples of the lagoon. For a long moment, everything feels perfectly still, the air, the water, even my thoughts. It's like the island itself is listening. Then slowly, the reflection in the lagoon begins to change again. Now it shows not just memories, but dreams. Patrick and I sitting on clouds made of sea foam, roasting marshmallows that sparkle when they melt. Patrick floating in a bubble the size of a boat, steering it with a jellyfish net. Patrick giving his rock a face and asking it for advice. Each image drifts across the lagoon like a gentle film reel made of light. They don't tell a story exactly. They feel like one soft, cozy, endless. The melody of the bubbles changes to warmer, fuller, like a lullaby deepening as the dream thickens. I lie back again, letting the sound wash through me. It's strange, but the longer I stay here, the more I feel the island breathing in sync with us. The sand seems to pulse faintly under my hand, and the trees sway with each exhale. Even Puffy's purring now sounds like the sea's heartbeat. A faint drizzle begins, not rain exactly, but glowing mist. Each droplet hums as it lands, sending tiny rings of light across the water. Patrick sighs, rolling onto his back again. "Ah," he mumbles. "Sprinkle rain." I laugh quietly. "You really are dreaming snacks again, aren't you?" He doesn't answer. He's smiling too peacefully to care. The rain falls slower, softer, until it's just a shimmer in the air, the sound of sleep itself. And beneath it, the lagoon glows brighter, filling the island with a light that feels both real and not, like the warmth of a half-remembered hug. The remembering pool ripples once more, and this time it shows something simple, Patrick and me sitting exactly as we are now, side by side, under a sleepy sky. The reflection lingers for a long time, then fades completely, leaving only the glow of the shells. Patrick murmurs, "Good dream, huh?" "Yeah," I whisper back. "The best one." He smiles, eyes still closed. "I made it for both of us." The ocean hums. The island breathes. The stars blink slowly, as if nodding off. And I lie back, letting the stillness sink in, letting Patrick's dream, his warmth, his unshakable calm wash through the water and into the quiet corners of my own. SpongeBob slowly followed the warm breeze back toward the heart of Patrick's island. The coral sand shimmered beneath his feet, every step releasing tiny puffs of glowing dust. The dream had softened colors no longer pulsed, but melted gently together, as if the island itself were starting to drift off again. He found Patrick sitting on a rock shaped like a couch, half asleep, clutching a coconut with 2 straws. One of the straws looped back into the coconut itself, Patrick's idea of sharing. His eyelids were halfway closed, his breathing steady, a slow rhythm that matched the sway of the seaweed trees around them. "Patrick," SpongeBob said softly, not wanting to disturb the peace, "you made a pretty amazing island here." Patrick cracked one eye open, smiling dreamily. "Thanks, buddy. I didn't even try. I just thought about naps and snacks, and then this place showed up." SpongeBob sat beside him, legs dangling over the edge of the rock. The ocean breeze carried the faint sound of bubbles bursting gentle, round and slow like a lullaby. "So this is your perfect dream," SpongeBob murmured. Patrick nodded. "Yep. No alarm clocks, no jellyfish stings, no chores, just comfy." He leaned back, letting his arms spread out across the air as if hugging the entire world. "Sometimes I think maybe this is what the whole ocean really wants to be like. Quiet, floaty, kind of squishy." SpongeBob laughed softly. "Squishy ocean. That does sound relaxing." Patrick grinned. "Yeah, you'd like it here, SpongeBob. There's no work. No Krusty Krab. Just naps and snacks." SpongeBob tilted his head, staring out at the glittering horizon. "It is nice, but I think I'd miss everyone, even Squidward." Patrick yawned so wide it echoed through the island. Squidward could have a hammock, a cranky hammock. That image made SpongeBob giggle. Squidward lying stiffly in a hammock, arms crossed, pretending not to enjoy it while secretly drifting asleep. A silence settled over them again, the kind that wasn't empty but full-filled with tiny sounds, waves kissing the sand, shells humming faintly, and the rustle of Patrick's sleepy sighs. "Patrick?" SpongeBob whispered. "Hmm? What happens when you wake up?" Patrick took a long pause, like the question was floating through a thick cloud before reaching him. "I don't know. Maybe I'll come back here later. I think dreams are like little islands. You can always swim back if you remember where they are." SpongeBob smiled at that. "Then I'll try to remember too." Patrick rolled onto his side, curling up. "You can have the pink sand part. It's soft. SpongeBob nodded. Thanks, pal. For a while, SpongeBob simply sat beside him, watching the waves. The stars above them seemed closer now, not distant pinpricks, but gentle orbs drifting lazily through the sky like balloons that had forgotten where to go. Each one reflected in the water below, making it look like the sea had its own set of dreams. Then somewhere behind them, a slow, deep rumble rolled through the air. SpongeBob turned, eyes wide. The volcano in the distance, Patrick's dream volcano, had begun to bubble again. But instead of fire or smoke, glowing pink jelly poured over the rim, sliding down in slow, syrupy waves. Patrick didn't move. He just smiled in his sleep. It's okay. That's just the warm nap sauce. SpongeBob blinked. Warm? Nap sauce? Yeah, Patrick murmured. It keeps the island sleepy. The pink jelly reached the shore, forming glowing puddles that spread beneath the coral trees. As it touched the sand, the ground began to hum softly. Not in warning, but in rhythm, like the island was singing a lullaby to itself. SpongeBob felt his body grow heavier, softer, calmer. Even the air seemed to cradle him. Patrick, he whispered again. But Patrick was already snoring, tiny bubbles floating from his mouth, rising into the night sky. Each bubble that escaped seemed to carry something, a thought, a memory, a fragment of laughter. SpongeBob could see flashes inside them. Patrick chasing an ice cream truck. Patrick sleeping under a jellyfish net. Patrick and SpongeBob building a sandcastle that collapsed instantly. The bubbles drifted upward, gathering around the moon, which now glowed pink with reflected light. SpongeBob reached out and caught one. Inside it, he saw himself sitting here, watching Patrick sleep on a glowing island in a dream. The sight made him smile. Guess dreams can dream too, he said softly. The bubble popped with a faint plink, like a note on a tiny piano. And slowly everything around him began to fade. The trees leaned, the stars dimmed, the waves turned to mist. The world was dissolving, not ending, just folding neatly into another page of sleep. SpongeBob looked down at him. Patrick mumbled something that sounded like 5 more minutes before rolling onto his back. Then SpongeBob felt the same soft pull again, the invisible tide that always came when one dream ended and another began. The island, the sand, even the pink jelly swirled around him, curling into spirals that looked like Patrick's fingerprints. He closed his eyes, letting the current take him. As he drifted upward, the faint echo of Patrick's snore followed him, steady, peaceful, and oddly musical. It blended with the whisper of the ocean until it became part of the background rhythm of the dream world. When SpongeBob finally opened his eyes again, he was floating through a vast expanse of violet mist. Patrick's island was gone, but its glow lingered on his skin, a warm memory wrapped around him like a blanket. He sighed, not sadly, but softly, because he knew that somewhere, in some corner of the dream ocean, Patrick was still there, napping forever beneath a pink sky. And as SpongeBob drifted onward, the last remnants of Patrick's laughter bubbled up around him, cheerful, slow, and drowsy before fading into silence. The sea below shimmered once more, then stilled. Patrick's sleepy island had fallen back into its eternal slumber. When SpongeBob opened his eyes again, he found himself surrounded by soft amber light. The ocean around him glowed like honey, and for a moment, he thought he was still inside one of Patrick's dreams. But then he noticed the faint whispering sound, not the gentle hum of the waves or the song of drifting bubbles, but something else entirely. It sounded like pages turning. He sat up slowly. The ground beneath him wasn't sand. This time it was smooth, polished coral, carved into delicate patterns that looked like the inside of seashells. The air shimmered faintly with drifting plankton that glowed like floating dust motes, giving everything a sleep golden haze. Ahead of him stretched an enormous structure, a cathedral of coral spires and shell domes, each one etched with symbols that pulsed faintly as if they were breathing. The entrance arched high above, guarded by two statues of pearls. And above the doorway, words were carved in flowing script. "The Coral Library, where memories go to rest." SpongeBob blinked. "A library?" he whispered. "In a dream?" He approached cautiously, his footsteps echoing faintly against the coral floor. The closer he got, the louder the whispers became. They weren't voices exactly, but more like the sound of thoughts drifting in slow motion, 1,000 stories speaking softly all at once. The doors opened on their own as he reached them, swinging inward without a sound. Inside was endless stillness. Rows upon rows of coral shells stretched in every direction, vanishing into the dim amber mist. The shelves weren't filled with books, but with objects, seashells, old bottles, scraps of parchment, even tiny bubbles sealed in glass spheres. Each one pulsed faintly with a different color. SpongeBob stepped inside, awestruck. The place smelled faintly of sea salt and thyme. The ceiling was impossibly high, its surface rippling like the top of the ocean. Little jellyfish drifted slowly between the rafters, their tendrils casting soft ribbons of light down onto the floor. He took a few cautious steps forward, running his hand along one of the shelves. The coral was cool and smooth beneath his fingers. When he touched a small shell resting there, it glowed faintly and whispered something he couldn't quite make out. A memory, maybe, or a name long forgotten. "Hello?" he called softly. His voice echoed faintly through the hall, bouncing from shelf to shelf like a wave rolling through coral tunnels. Then, from behind one of the shelves, a faint shimmer of movement. Out stepped a tall, translucent figure shaped like a manta ray, its wings slow and graceful. It wore a necklace of pearls that glowed faintly blue, and its eyes shimmered with gentle light. "Welcome, dreamer," it said, its voice as soft as flowing water. "You've arrived at the Coral Library." SpongeBob straightened, blinking. "Wow, I've never been to a library like this before. I didn't even know coral could hold books." The manta ray smiled, or at least its expression curved in a way that felt like smiling. "We do not hold books here. We hold memories. Each shell, each bubble, each grain of sand upon these shelves contains a dream that once drifted through the ocean, forgotten by the waking world, remembered by us." "That's incredible," SpongeBob whispered. The creature glided closer, its wings stirring gentle ripples in the water. Few dreamers find this place. It reveals itself only to those who wander too deep into their own imagination. SpongeBob tilted his head. "So, does that mean I've wandered too deep?" The manta's glow flickered briefly, a sign of amusement. "Perhaps. Or perhaps you were meant to remember something." "Remember what?" SpongeBob asked. "That," the librarian said softly, "is for the shelves to decide." It turned gracefully and gestured with one fin. "Come, let the coral show you." SpongeBob followed as the manta ray drifted deeper into the aisles. The farther they went, the quieter everything became. The whispering sounds grew softer, lower until they felt more like a heartbeat than a voice. They stopped before a tall shelf shaped like a spiral seashell. Its surface shimmered with pale blue light. "Place your hand here," the librarian said. SpongeBob hesitated, then did as told. The coral felt warm. Then it pulsed, Once, and hundreds of tiny shells along the shelf began to vibrate. A few lifted gently off their perches and floated toward him, glowing brighter. He gasped. Inside each shell, faint images began to form scenes from his own life. Jellyfishing with Patrick, flipping Krabby Patties with Mr. Krabs, even moments he'd forgotten, like the first time he tied his shoes, or the day he found his favorite spatula. He watched in awe as the shells circled around him, spinning slowly like planets. "These are your fragments," said the manta ray softly. "The dreams your heart has collected without realizing. They drifted here over time, like seashells carried by the current." SpongeBob reached toward one. It hovered just beyond his fingertips, glowing gold. Inside it, he saw himself standing outside the Krusty Krab on a quiet night, looking up at the glowing sign. The memory carried a strange warmth, comfort mixed with a hint of loneliness. "I remember that night," Bob murmured. "Everyone had gone home. I just stood there listening to the ocean." The librarian nodded. "Dreams and memories are twin tides always returning to each other." SpongeBob smiled faintly. "So, all the dreams everyone's ever had end up here?" The manta ray's voice grew quieter. "Not all. Only the ones the ocean chooses to keep. Some fade, some sink, and some are rewritten by time." That thought made SpongeBob's chest ache a little. "That sounds sad." "Not sad," the librarian corrected gently. "Simply part of the rhythm. The ocean does not mourn a wave when it returns to the sea." SpongeBob thought about that as the shells drifted slowly back to their shelves. The light dimmed again, and the whispers returned to their soft, steady rhythm. The librarian turned back toward him. "Would you like to see another section?" "Yes, please," SpongeBob said eagerly. "This place feels peaceful, like it's remembering everything for us." The manta ray glided forward, leading him into a deeper corridor, where the coral turned from amber to deep violet. The water here felt heavier like night. "The next section," the librarian said quietly, "is older. It holds the dreams of things that no longer swim." SpongeBob's eyes widened. "You mean, like ancient sea creatures?" The manta ray nodded slowly. "Or places, or songs." And as they drifted deeper into the violet light, SpongeBob began to hear something faint music, echoing through the coral halls like a forgotten lullaby. He followed the sound, heart quiet, as if he were walking through the dreams of the sea itself. The melody grew clearer as SpongeBob and the manta librarian glided through the violet-lit corridor. It wasn't like any song he'd heard before, no lyrics and no instruments, just a rhythm that seemed to rise and fall like tides. Each note shimmered through the water, soft as a sigh, warm as moonlight. As they turned a corner, the passage opened into a massive circular chamber. The walls curved inward like the inside of a conch shell, lined with shelves of deep purple coral. But instead of shells or bottles, this room was filled with bubbles, enormous ones that floated slowly in the water, each glowing with a faint inner light. The librarian's voice lowered. "This is the all-lost oceans. Here rest the dreams of places long forgotten. When coral reefs fade, when old currents change their course, their memories drift here to sleep." SpongeBob's eyes widened. The bubbles reflected his face in 100 different ways as he swam closer, their surfaces rippling with ghostly images. One bubble showed a city of glass anemones that shimmered beneath a crimson sun. Another contained a forest of kelp taller than mountains, glowing faintly with tiny blue fish like fireflies. He pressed his palm gently against one bubble. It pulsed under his touch, releasing a faint sound like a sigh. Inside, he saw a glimpse of something ancient. a great turtle swimming through an ocean that no longer existed, its shell covered in moss and coral, carrying whole reefs on its back. "That's beautiful," he whispered. The librarian nodded slowly, wings curling inward like folds of fabric. Beauty and sadness often share the same current. SpongeBob looked around, feeling a strange mix of wonder and weight. Every bubble seemed alive, not just a memory, but a heartbeat, a breath from another time. He floated silently for a moment, just listening to the sound of the song, the one that seemed to come from the bubbles themselves. "What's that music?" he asked softly. The manta ray's glow deepened. "Those are the last sounds of forgotten seas. Each bubble hums with the frequency of its own ocean. Together, they create the lullaby you hear." SpongeBob's eyes softened. "So the sea dreams about itself, too." "Indeed," said the librarian. "Even the sea must rest." They drifted deeper into the hall. As they passed, some bubbles dimmed, while others brightened, responding to SpongeBob's movement like eyes following his path. At the center of the room stood a pedestal made of dark coral, coiled in intricate spirals. On top rested a single, enormous shell, white as moonlight, its surface etched with unreadable markings. SpongeBob felt drawn to it instantly. "What's that one?" he asked. The librarian hesitated before answering. "That is one of the oldest records in the library. It holds a dream that has never been read." SpongeBob blinked. "Never? Not once," the librarian said. "It came from deep below the trenches, from a place where even the light of the moon cannot reach. We do not open such dreams lightly." SpongeBob tilted his head, curiosity flickering like a candle. "But why not? Maybe it's waiting for someone to remember it." The librarian regarded him with eyes that shimmered like ripples. "Perhaps. But dreams like this one do not always show what you want to remember. They show what has been hidden." SpongeBob hesitated. His heart thumped softly, a strange feeling of both nervousness and excitement. "Could I maybe take a peek?" The librarian studied him for a long moment. Then it nodded. "If you do, remember this. Not all dreams belong to those who dream them." SpongeBob swallowed. "Got it." The librarian gestured with its wing, and the water grew still. The glowing jellyfish in the rafters dimmed, casting the room into a soft dusk. SpongeBob reached out slowly, placing one hand on the shell. At first, nothing happened. Glow faintly at first, then brighter, until beams of light radiated through the chamber. The shell unfolded like a flower blooming in reverse, revealing a swirl of color inside deep blues, stormy grays, and flashes of gold. SpongeBob gasped as the water around him changed. The coral floor beneath his feet dissolved into sand. The walls faded, and suddenly he was standing in a vast underwater canyon. The current was cold here, and the light was dim, filtered through clouds of drifting ash. He looked down and saw strange carvings on the rock symbols, shaped like spirals and waves, ancient and unfamiliar. "Where am I?" he whispered. The librarian's voice echoed faintly as if from miles away. "You are inside the dream." SpongeBob turned in slow circles, his heart relaxed. Everything felt too real, the chill of the water, the distant rumble of deep sea currents, the slow drift of glowing plankton that looked like falling snow. He swam forward cautiously. Ahead, something massive loomed, a structure half buried in sand. It looked like a temple, built of coral bones and pearl stone, its doorway sealed by vines of black seaweed. The air around it felt heavy, thick with the weight of forgotten time. SpongeBob hesitated, then reached out to brush away the seaweed. As he did, faint symbols glowed beneath his fingers, the same ones from the shell in the library. Inside, darkness yawned like a sleeping whale. He took a deep breath, even though he didn't need to in a dream, and stepped through. The moment he crossed the threshold, the world changed again. The temple wasn't empty. It was full of shelves, endless shelves of coral and shell, all glowing faintly with blue-green light. It looked exactly like the coral library, only older, dustier, quieter. SpongeBob's voice came out as a whisper. "Is this, another library?" The librarian's voice answered softly from somewhere unseen. "This is the first one, the original, built by the dreams of the sea itself." He looked around, eyes wide. Every shelf was cracked, every shelf faintly flickering like a dying candle. The whispers here were faint, not words, just the faint rhythm of things that had nearly been forgotten. At the center of this ancient library, a single object hovered, a glowing pearl the size of SpongeBob's head. It pulsed softly. SpongeBob floated closer. Inside the pearl, faint shapes, shifted outlines of jellyfish, coral, waves, and something else. Something shaped like Bikini Bottom. He gasped. "That's home." The librarian's voice echoed through the hall. "Yes, even the places you know are part of older dreams. Everything in the sea was imagined once, and imagination remembers." SpongeBob stared at the glowing pearl, his heart full. So the ocean dreamed of Bikini Bottom. "Perhaps," the voice replied. "Or perhaps Bikini Bottom dreamed of the ocean. In dreams, it is hard to tell who dreams who." The thought made him dizzy in the most wonderful way. He smiled faintly, letting the glow wash over him. The ancient coral around him shimmered, as if breathing along with the rhythm of his thoughts. For a long time, he just floated there, watching the dream breathe. SpongeBob floated in silence, mesmerized by the pearl's gentle radiance. The soft glow rippled outward, tracing luminous patterns across the cracked coral walls. Each flicker looked like handwriting, drifting words made of light, then fading before they could be read. He reached a cautious hand toward the pearl. "Hello?" he whispered. "Hear me?" The pearl pulsed, answering not with words, but a low hum, deep. When SpongeBob closed his eyes again, it wasn't like before. This time, the darkness didn't feel heavy or sleepy. It felt wide, so wide that it stretched beyond thought, beyond memory. There was no sound, no current, no ceiling of coral or sea above him, only stillness. And then, a glow. A single thread of light drifted toward him. It moved like a slow jellyfish, pulsing, alive, gentle. As it touched him, warmth spread through his body, soft and calm. The thread began to unwind, curling into a spiral that expanded outward, forming waves of golden light around him. SpongeBob floated in the center, weightless. "Where am I?" he whispered. The words didn't echo. They dissolved into light, as though the ocean itself was listening silently. He looked around. The sea, if it could still be called that, was pure radiance. The water had become translucent gold, shimmering like sunlight through glass. There was no up or down, no shadow, just light, endless and patient. It wasn't bright in a blinding way. It was peaceful. The kind of glow that you could almost rest inside of, like a blanket made of color. He turned slowly, his arms outstretched. "Hello?" Something stirred in the distance, faint shapes moving within the light. They looked like fish at first, but as they came closer, he saw that they weren't creatures at all. They were fragments of dreams, drifting images that shimmered like reflections on water. A bubble floated past his face, and inside it, he saw Patrick napping on his pink island. Another passed by, showing Squidward leaning against his clarinet, eyes closed, a small smile breaking through his usual frown. Then came one of the Krusty Krab, empty, quiet, its sign glowing softly in the eternal glow. SpongeBob reached out to touch it. The bubble trembled and melted into his hand, dissolving into light. And just like that, he understood. This wasn't a dream he had fallen into. It was the dream he had been moving toward all along. The endless ocean of lights. The place where all dreams finally rest. He could feel it now beneath his skin, every bubble he had seen in the coral library, every glowing shell, every lullaby hum from Patrick's Island. They were all here, drifting together, blending into one vast sea of memory and peace. It wasn't like being awake or asleep. It was something deeper, something kind. He floated slowly through the current, watching as the light shifted colors, pale blues, soft pinks, golds, greens, changing like moods, breathing like waves. In the distance, he saw great shapes moving, enormous and slow. At first, he thought they were whales, but then he realized they were dreams too, giant, ancient ones. Each shape glowed with symbols and whisper cities made of coral towers, seas full of floating lanterns, and vast creatures made entirely of song. The sight filled him with awe. He felt small but not scared. Wow, he breathed. So many dreams. A voice, faint, melodic, rippled through the golden water. Every dream that ever touched the sea finds its way here. SpongeBob turned, eyes wide. A shape formed from the light, a figure made of pure radiance. Neither fish nor person. It had no edges, no face, but it shimmered in soft gold and blue, like sunlight reflecting through bubbles. "Who are you?" SpongeBob asked. The voice was calm and vast. "I am the Tidekeeper. I watch the dreams as they rise and fall." SpongeBob blinked. "The Tidekeeper? You mean like the Dream Ocean's lifeguard?" A pause and then a ripple of gentle amusement passed through the light. "If you wish to think of it that way, yes." The Tidekeeper drifted closer, the water glowing brighter around it. "You have wandered far, little sponge. Few reach the ocean of light." SpongeBob looked down at himself. His yellow glow had deepened. Faint outlines of his past dreams flickered across his body like reflections. Jellyfish, bubbles, the Krusty Krab, and even Patrick's sleepy smile. "I didn't mean to come here," he said softly. "I was just following where the dreams went." "And that," said the Tidekeeper, "is why you were allowed in." The figure raised one glowing hand, or what looked like one, and the water around them shifted. Thousands of tiny bubbles rose upward, each one containing a spark of memory. "These are the last lights," said the Tidekeeper. "Dreams that have finished their journey. They rise here before returning to the sea of waking." SpongeBob watched, mesmerized. Each bubble shimmered with faint visions. Children dreaming of shells, sailors dreaming of stars, fish dreaming of flying above the waves. "They're beautiful," he whispered. "They are the stories the ocean never forgets," the Tidekeeper said. "Every laugh, every wish, every moment of rest, all flow here to become light." SpongeBob watched as the bubbles drifted higher until they vanished into the golden ceiling above. "So they go back up to the world." "Yes, back into the hearts of those who sleep. The ocean of dreams never ends, it only changes shape. For a moment, SpongeBob floated silently, his gaze lost in the glow. Then he looked down deep below him. The golden light darkened into soft indigo. It looked endless. "What's down there?" The tidekeeper's voice softened. "The quietest place of all. The dreams that choose to rest forever. The ones that have nothing left to say." SpongeBob's eyes glimmered with curiosity. "Can I see them?" The figure hesitated. "Few have ever gone that deep." "I'd like to," SpongeBob said gently. "Just for a moment." The tidekeeper's light pulsed as if considering. Then slowly it nodded. "Then the ocean will carry you." The water around SpongeBob thickened, the golden hue fading into deep violet. The light above grew dimmer, but warmer, like candlelight instead of sunlight. He felt himself sinking, but not falling. It was like being lowered by invisible hands into something soft, safe, and infinite. The further he descended, the quieter it became. The ripples slowed. The light thinned until it became strands, then thin trails of silver weaving through the dark. SpongeBob's heartbeat slowed to match the rhythm around him. And somewhere far below he saw them, countless shapes, lying still in the dark. Not gone, just resting. Dreams that had finished their stories. He floated among them, eyes wide with awe. Some glowed faintly like shells under moonlight. Others were barely visible, whispers of images, memories of laughter, half-forgotten songs. He reached out gently, his hand brushing one of them, a small, glowing spiral. For an instant, he heard a giggle, faint but familiar. It was his own voice long ago when he was a tiny sponge, dreaming for the first time. He smiled softly, and the spiral pulsed once, then faded. Not gone, but at peace. The tidekeeper's voice whispered through the still water. "You see now, SpongeBob. Even the smallest dream becomes part of the ocean. Nothing truly ends here." He nodded slowly, his eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "Then this is where peace lives." "Yes," said the voice, echoing faintly. "The heart of every dream lies here, resting in light." And in that endless, shimmering quiet, SpongeBob felt something he'd never felt before. Not joy, not sadness, but a kind of perfect calm. It was the stillness between waves, the silence inside a bubble, the ocean itself breathing. SpongeBob lingered in the stillness, his body hovering weightlessly in the deep violet glow. It wasn't darkness, not really, but something softer, like the color that lingers behind your eyes after a bright day. The quiet around him had a texture to it, like velvet made of water and breath. The resting dreams drifted around him like leaves in a slow current. Each one had its own rhythm, a gentle flicker, a heartbeat of light. Some shimmered with faint laughter, others with music too quiet to hear. He passed by one that looked like a swirling seashell, pulsing faintly with golden ripples. Inside it, he glimpsed two tiny figures, maybe an old couple, sitting together under a coral arch. They weren't moving, but they weren't sad either. Just still. He smiled. "I think they're happy," he whispered. The tidekeeper's voice rolled gently through the water. "They are. Some dreams find peace in motion, others in rest. Both belong to the sea." SpongeBob tilted his head. "And do dreams ever wake up?" The figures shimmered far above him, like moonlight seen through deep waves. "Sometimes, when they're remembered. When someone loves them enough to bring them back." SpongeBob thought of Patrick's Island, of the jellyfish songs, of Squidward's clarinet echoing across coral canyons. He thought of laughter and bubbles and how even simple things like flipping a Krabby Patty could feel like tiny dreams. Then maybe, he said softly, dreams don't belong just to sleep. Maybe they live in everything we love. The Tidekeeper's light flickered in agreement. You are beginning to understand. He looked up toward the faint gold haze above. It felt impossibly far away now, but not unreachable. The water around him shifted subtly, as if stirring from a long nap. The silvery strands of light began to move, forming spirals that wrapped around him. He floated upward slowly, drawn by the current. The stillness began to hum, faintly at first, then stronger, not like music with melody, but like vibration, deep and full, as though the entire ocean had taken one slow, peaceful breath. "What's happening?" SpongeBob asked, his voice trembling in awe. "The ocean is turning," the Tidekeeper replied. "Every dream has its tide. When it flows upward, something new awakens." SpongeBob turned his gaze downward once more. The resting dreams below were glowing brighter now, faint ripples spreading through them. It wasn't noise or chaos, it was renewal. "Are they waking up?" "In a way," said the Tidekeeper. "They will become new dreams, new stories. Nothing is ever truly lost, not even what sleeps forever." That idea warmed SpongeBob from the inside. He floated in silence for a while, letting the glow wash over him. The violet light deepened into blue again, soft and alive. The walls of water shimmered with patterns that reminded him of coral and jellyfish and clouds all at once. Then, from the corner of his vision, he noticed movement, not the quiet drift of resting dreams, but something different, something familiar. A tiny bubble rose from the depths, glowing faintly yellow. It drifted lazily, wobbling like a balloon underwater. SpongeBob smiled and reached out to catch it. Inside, he saw himself sitting on the floor of the Krusty Krab, mopping happily, humming to himself. The scene was ordinary, even silly, but the joy in it was pure. He held the bubble close. "How was a good day?" he whispered. "I remember that one." The bubble pulsed once, like it heard him, then released a soft tone, a note so clear and tender that it seemed to ripple through the entire sea. The dreams around him responded, glowing brighter in rhythm with the sound. The Tidekeeper's voice returned, lighter now, almost smiling. "Do you see, SpongeBob? Memory is light. Even the smallest one can wake the deepest dream." SpongeBob nodded. "Then maybe I can wake more." "You can try," said the voice. "But remember, not all dreams wish to wake. Some find peace in being seen, not stirred." He understood. Carefully, reverently, he drifted among the dreams again, not touching, not disturbing, only watching. Each bubble seemed to react differently to his presence. Some brightened as he passed, others dimmed peacefully. He realized that even without words, they knew him, knew his kindness, his laughter, his endless curiosity. As he moved through them, the current around him began to swirl. The light deepened from gold to rose, from rose to sapphire. He could feel warmth rising from below, a pull toward the surface. The Tidekeeper's light grew stronger overhead. "It is almost time." "Time to wake up?" SpongeBob asked softly. "Yes. You have seen the heart of the ocean. You have remembered its stillness. Now it must send you home." He looked up again. The water above glowed like dawn through a dream. "But what if I forget? What if I can't find this place again?" The Tidekeeper's light pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. "The ocean does not live in one place. It lives in every gentle thing, every quiet moment, every laugh shared under the sea. You will find it whenever you slow down enough to listen." SpongeBob smiled. "Like when I watch jellyfish drift?" "Exactly," said the voice. or when you listened when the bubbles rise from your pineapple walls, or when you close your eyes and breathe like the tide. The words wrapped around him like warmth. And then, from somewhere far away, SpongeBob heard another sound, faint, familiar. Drip, drip, like water tapping against glass. It was real, from the waking world. He looked around. The golden light was softening now, thinning like mist. The dreams were fading one by one into sparkles that drifted upward. SpongeBob felt something stir inside him, a mix of joy and sadness. "I don't want to leave yet," he whispered. The Tidekeeper's voice was gentle. "No dream lasts forever, but what it gives you never fades." He took one last look around. The vast ocean glowed like a living sunrise. The dreams swirled and shimmered, each one becoming a note in the grand, wordless song of light. He realized then that this wasn't an ending at all. It was a continuation, a wave returning to shore. He reached up, arms outstretched, letting the current lift him. The golden water wrapped around his body, swirling in bright ribbons. The sound grew louder, not noise, but life itself humming softly through him. The Tidekeeper's final words echoed through the glow. "Wake gently, dreamer of laughter. The light remembers you." The world around him dissolved into brilliance, and then silence. The feeling of floating turned into the softness of his bed. The warmth of the light became the gentle glow of morning. His eyes fluttered open, and the sea was waiting. When SpongeBob opened his eyes, he didn't wake with a start. He woke like the ocean itself, slowly, softly, wave by wave. The light that filled his room wasn't as golden as the ocean he'd just left, but it had a gentleness to it, the faint blue shimmer that filtered through the water outside his window. His pineapple walls curved warmly around him, as though the house itself had been dreaming too. He lay there for a long moment, not moving. His mind was still half in the ocean of light. He could almost feel the hum beneath the silence, the rhythm of the Tidekeeper's voice lingering deep inside him, faint as a heartbeat. The tiny golden shell from the coral library still sat on his nightstand. It glowed softly, like a distant star. He smiled. Guess I wasn't dreaming about that part either. When he finally sat up, the blanket slipped off his shoulders. It felt heavier than usual, as if it had soaked up a bit of the deep-sea stillness. The whole world felt slower, quieter, not in a sad way, but in a way that made every little sound feel sacred. The gentle bubbling from his aquarium, the far-off creak of the pineapple's frame, even the tiny sigh of a drifting current outside. He swung his legs out of bed, padding toward the window. The view outside was peaceful jellyfish drifting lazily through the early morning light, coral leaves swaying like they were half asleep. The whole ocean seemed to be taking its first breath of the day. SpongeBob pressed his hands to the glass. For a moment he could have sworn he saw faint golden ripples passing through the water, like the light from his dream had followed him home. Then he heard something soft, faint, but unmistakably familiar. Blub. It wasn't the sound of a jellyfish or a current. It was like the whisper of a bubble forming. He turned, and there, floating near his ceiling, was a single, glowing bubble. It wasn't ordinary. It shimmered with the same golden hue as the light from the endless ocean, slow, breathing, alive. SpongeBob stepped closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "Did you follow me back?" The bubble wobbled gently, like it understood. Inside it, faint shapes moved, tiny ripples of color, impossible to make out clearly. It felt familiar, though, comforting. SpongeBob smiled. You're one of them, aren't you? One of the dreams. The bubble pulsed once. He reached out a hand but didn't touch it. He just watched as it floated lazily toward the window, glowing against the morning light. "Where are you going?" he asked softly. The bubble drifted closer to the glass and paused. For a heartbeat, it shimmered so brightly that its reflection painted gold across SpongeBob's face. Then, as if carried by a current he couldn't see, it slipped through the window pane right through the glass, leaving only a faint ripple behind. SpongeBob watched it drift away into the sea, rising slowly among the jellyfish, until it vanished into the light above. For a long time he stood there silent, not sad, not even surprised, just filled with a sense of gentle wonder. He whispered to himself, "Every dream returns home." The tidekeeper's words. He turned from the window and glanced at his golden shell again. It pulsed faintly, as though it too had heard the bubbles goodbye. SpongeBob sat down beside it, resting his chin in his hands. His mind wandered back through everything he had seen. Patrick's sleepy island, the coral library, the endless ocean of light. He could still feel the warmth of it, not on his skin, but somewhat deeper, in the space behind his heart. He thought about what the tidekeeper had said, that the ocean lived in everything quiet, everything gentle. He looked around his room and realized maybe the tidekeeper was right. The way sunlight curved through the window, the way the bubbles rose from his aquarium in slow rhythm, the faint swaying of his curtains like seagrass. Every little thing had that same stillness in it. He got up again, feeling lighter now. Outside, Bikini Bottom was just waking up. He could see Squidward through the window next door, yawning dramatically on his front porch, his robe dragging on the ground. Patrick was already asleep on his rock again, mouth open, snoring softly. SpongeBob chuckled. Some things never change. He stepped outside. The water felt cool, wrapping around him like the slow tide from his dream. The street shimmered faintly, catching the light in the small ripples. He stood there for a while, just breathing in, out slow and even. He remembered what the tidekeeper said. You will find it whenever you slow down enough to listen. So he did. He listened. The hum of the ocean, the faint rustle of coral, the tiny sound of a clam opening somewhere nearby. And somewhere within all of that, he thought, he could hear something deeper, a sound that wasn't quite sound at all, a low vibration that seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat. It was the same rhythm as the endless ocean. He smiled, realizing it had never really left him. Then, as he turned toward Jellyfish Fields, a soft glow caught his eye, faint golden trails drifting upward from the sand. He followed them. Each one looked like a thread of light, twisting through the water like slow-moving ribbons. They led him up a small hill where the view stretched wide across the sea. From there he could see everything, the Krusty Krab, the chum bucket, the dome of Sandy's tree dome in the distance. And above it all, the sunlight shimmered in soft waves. It wasn't just light anymore. It was alive. He could see tiny flecks of color, pinks, blues, golds drifting within it. Dreams, maybe, or pieces of them. He whispered, "They're still here." And he realized something. Maybe the endless ocean of light wasn't just deep below. Maybe it was everywhere. Maybe every bubble that floated up from the Krusty Krab carried a little piece of it. Maybe every jellyfish glow, every ripple in the tide, every sparkle on a shell, maybe all of them were little echoes of that place. The ocean didn't end where waking began. It flowed through both. SpongeBob stood there for a long while, watching the light ripple through the sea. He felt calm, whole, connected. Eventually, he sat down on the sand, cross-legged, and closed his eyes again. Not to sleep this time, but to listen. And there it was, the hum, deep, low, and endless. The sound of the ocean remembering itself. SpongeBob sat there on the hill overlooking Bikini Bottom, the soft hum of the ocean surrounding him like a lullaby that never truly ended. The golden light shimmered through the water, quiet, eternal, alive. He felt it brushing against his skin like the gentlest current, wrapping around him, filling the spaces between his thoughts. He closed his eyes again, letting the rhythm of the ocean guide his breathing. In, out, in, out. Each breath felt like the sea moving through him, steady, timeless, kind. Somewhere in that rhythm, faint whispers began to rise, not from outside, but from within. The kind of voices that weren't made of sound, but of memory. He could hear Patrick's laughter echoing faintly, that big, slow, happy laugh that always made the world feel safer. He heard Squidward's clarinet drifting softly through the current, the notes slow and melancholy but beautiful in their own quiet way. He heard Sandy's voice, too bright and full of warmth, speaking of stars and science and skies he'd never seen. They weren't calling him. They were part of him, threads in the same glowing tide. SpongeBob smiled faintly. He whispered, "Maybe. Maybe that's what the Tidekeeper meant. Maybe dreams are just how we remember each other." The golden light around him shimmered, as if nodding in agreement. And then far off in the distance he saw it, a faint shape moving through the glow. A whale? No, too small, too round. It floated closer, turning slowly, and SpongeBob's eyes softened when he recognized it. It was the Bubble, the same one that had floated out his window earlier that morning. But it wasn't alone this time. Around it were dozens, maybe hundreds, of other bubbles, drifting through the light like a silent choir. Each one glowed softly gold, pink, turquoise, violet, and inside each he could see faint outlines, memories, dreams, feelings. One showed Patrick asleep on his rock, dreaming of ice cream that never melted. Another showed Squidward standing on a coral stage, bowing to a quiet audience of jellyfish. A third showed Mr. Krabs counting golden coins that glowed brighter than treasure, maybe because they were memories of joy, not greed. SpongeBob's chest swelled with quiet warmth. All those dreams, all those lives moving together like one living ocean. He realized the bubbles weren't random. They were flowing in a slow, spiraling path upward toward a faint golden shimmer above. It wasn't sunlight exactly, though it looked like it. It was something deeper, something that felt like the ocean remembering its own beginning. He rose slowly, watching as the glowing bubbles floated past him. He could feel the faint pull, not like a current dragging him away, but like an invitation. The bubbles brushed against him gently as they passed, and with each one came a feeling, warmth, laughter, peace, belonging. He whispered, "You're going home." The nearest bubble pulsed softly, as though answering him. He followed them for a while through fields of coral, over sleeping kelp forests, past glowing caves filled with fish that shimmered like lanterns. Each step felt lighter than the last, until it was hard to tell whether he was walking or floating. As the sea opened wider, the golden shimmer above grew brighter. The bubbles gathered closer together now, forming spirals and shapes. Some looked like stars, others like constellations he'd never seen. Then, as he reached the top of the ridge, the ocean around him turned to light. It wasn't blinding. It was soft, endless, alive. And there, within it, he saw the tidekeeper again. Not as a figure this time, but as the ocean itself, the light, the current, the sound. It was everything and everywhere. A voice drifted through him, not loud, but deep, resonating inside his chest. You've remembered. SpongeBob closed his eyes, letting the voice wash through him. I think I understand now. The dreams, the bubbles, the quiet, it's all connected. The light pulsed softly. All things returned to the stillness from which they came. Every laughter, every thought, every dream. SpongeBob nodded, eyes still closed. And then they come back again? Yes, said the voice. In new shapes, new songs, new ripples. The sea forgets nothing, SpongeBob. It only learns how to listen. He felt tears, not of sadness, but of wonder, drift upward from his cheeks like tiny pearls. The light grew softer, surrounding him completely. He could feel himself floating now, no weight, no sound, no thought. Just breath, slow and even, echoing the rhythm of the ocean itself. And in that moment, he realized something he hadn't before. The endless ocean of light wasn't somewhere else. It was within him, within Patrick, within every jellyfish, every coral, every bubble that ever rose to the surface. It was Bikini Bottom itself, the quiet in the morning, the laughter at the Krusty Krab, the hum beneath the sea at night. The light had always been there. He just hadn't slowed down enough to see it. He let the truth settle in him like the tide settling back into the sand. Then gently, the light began to fade. Not because it was leaving, but because he was returning. When SpongeBob opened his eyes again, he was sitting once more on the little hill overlooking Bikini Bottom. The world looked the same, yet different in a way he couldn't quite name. The water shimmered. The coral glowed faintly. The sea hummed softly. He whispered to himself, "The ocean never ends." He looked upward toward the surface where the faintest light still danced. Somewhere, he thought, the bubbles were still drifting, carrying dreams upward, carrying peace downward, in a cycle that never broke. He smiled, laying back on the sand, watching the waves of light ripple above. His eyelids grew heavy again, but this time, sleep didn't pull him away. It welcomed him home. The golden shell still glowed in his hand. And as he drifted between waking and dreaming, he heard the tidekeeper's voice one last time, soft as the hush of a wave against a shell. "Sleep, little sponge. The light remembers you." SpongeBob exhaled slowly, a single bubble leaving his mouth, floating upward. It caught the sunlight as it rose shimmering gold, pink, and blue before disappearing into the quiet, glowing sea. The world was still. The dream was alive. The ocean breathed on.